The bacteria that cause Lyme disease are commonly passed to humans from the deer tick in North America. This deer tick nymph is about the size of a poppy seed. After the tick starts feeding, the bacteria move from the midgut to the salivary glands and pass through the saliva into the skin over a period of several days. If we take a closer look, inside the skin and inside the tick's feeding cavity, we can see what causes the disease. Borrelia burgdorferi, which is a spirochete, a type of bacteria with unusual features. These features include a double membrane and internal flagella. A flagellum is a tail-like structure that some bacteria rotate in order to move. Spirochetes' flagella are uniquely anchored inside the bacteria, between an inner and outer membrane, rather than on the surface. The tension of these internal flagella give the Lyme disease bacteria their spiral shape. The unique structure of the bacteria allows them to move in a corkscrew-like fashion. They can travel through dense fibrous tissues such as the deep layers of the skin. Their spiraling movement helps them avoid immune system cells like macrophages, as they spread through the skin and multiply. The bacteria that cause Lyme disease are actually masters of evading the immune system. Normally, in the case of a small skin wound like this paper cut, the body will react within minutes if infectious bacteria enter the skin. Natural substances in the blood called complement proteins, which are part of the body's innate immune response, bind to the surface of bacteria. These proteins normally bind with additional proteins to create a large pore. The formation of many of these pores allows fluid to rush into the bacteria and leads to bacterial cell lysis and death. Complement proteins also make it easier for macrophages to recognize and engulf the bacteria via phagocytosis. In the case of a Lyme disease infection, although the body's complement proteins can bind to the bacteria, instead of activating the normal immune response, different proteins on the surface of the Lyme disease bacteria can prevent the formation of pores. Molecules in the saliva of the tick also suppress nearby immune system cells, further aiding in the establishment of the initial infection. The body also normally fights infectious bacteria by developing antibodies, which are proteins that attach to invading microorganisms. Macrophages can then detect and kill the pathogens that are tagged with antibodies. However, Lyme disease bacteria hide from the body's immune system. They do this by changing the structure of proteins on their surface throughout the infection. This disguises the Lyme disease bacteria from newly produced antibodies, which can't bind to the new protein, and allows the infection to persist. Lyme disease occurs in 3 stages. Stage 1 is the initial infection in the skin at the site of the tick bite. The infection frequently, but not always, begins with a circular red rash called erythema migrans, or migrating or expanding redness. As we can see in this timeline, the rash may appear in the first few weeks of infection, typically resolving by the end of the first month. The early Lyme disease infection often causes flu-like symptoms such as fever, headache, and joint pain at this time. If treated with antibiotics at this stage, a full recovery is likely. If the Lyme disease infection goes untreated, the rash will usually resolve on its own. But during the first stage, the bacteria will often enter small blood vessels and spread to other parts of the body, including the joints, the heart, and the nervous system structures. The bacteria emit no known toxins, but they cause a strong inflammatory response in the body. This may cause muscle and joint pain, and if the bacteria travel to the heart, palpitations and a slowed heart rate that may lead to loss of consciousness and, rarely, death. The infection may also cause symptoms such as fatigue, cognitive complaints, headache, and neurological signs such as meningitis or inflammation of the brain and spinal cord membranes. This inflammation may also cause pain or dysfunction of the nerves leaving the brain or spinal cord, leading to conditions like Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy is dysfunction of the 7th cranial nerve, also called the facial nerve, which leads to temporary paralysis of the muscles of one or both sides of the face. As untreated Lyme disease progresses, flu-like and early nervous system symptoms may wax and wane or subside, but new symptoms appear in the majority of patients, signifying stage 3, or late Lyme disease. These may include late nervous system and joint signs and symptoms, such as arthritis and synovitis, most commonly of one knee. Synovitis is inflammation of the membrane that surrounds the joint, associated with visible joint swelling. Nervous system symptoms include extreme fatigue, short-term memory symptoms, difficulty concentrating, and nerve damage. When Lyme disease is discovered at any stage, antibiotics are administered. Most patients experience a complete recovery. However, approximately 10 to 20% of antibiotic-treated patients go on to experience chronic symptoms after treatment called post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, or PTLDS, with persistent symptoms such as fatigue, musculoskeletal pain, and cognitive dysfunction. More research on the causes and treatments of PTLDS is urgently needed. The cause of PTLDS is currently unknown. Our recent studies point to one possible factor being immune system dysregulation. There is evidence of changes in the amounts of immune system molecules that may produce inflammation and symptoms throughout the body. This may include regional inflammation of the brains of patients with PTLDS, as shown in red in this PET scan. This could represent activated microglia, a type of immune system cell in the brain. The Johns Hopkins Lyme Disease Research Center aims to better understand the complexity of human Lyme disease and the interactions between patients' genetics, the Lyme disease bacteria, and the reaction of the immune system. We strive for a future where accurate diagnosis and effective treatment will bring better outcomes and new hope to patients and their families.